As the Second Northern War intensified, and many more battles, large and small, erupted, towns were sacked, villages burned, and crops stolen or destroyed, with the Empire appearing to be on the precipice of victory. Although a harsh winter forced them to delay their final push for a year, eventually they were ready to send 300,000 soldiers to complete their conquest. Dividing their forces into 3 divisions, the Verden Operations Group was tasked with taking Sidaris to secure the west flank, while the East Army Group secured Lyria, Rivia, Edirn, and the Pontar Valley, leaving the Center Army Group to conquer Temeria without fear of attack from the sides. Though the East Army Group succeeded, the Verden operation was a disaster, as it was led by Joachim de Wet, an enemy of the Emperor plotting his assassination. Having no desire to help Emir win his war, Joachim squandered his advantage in numbers by focusing on exterminating the rebels of Verden rather than attacking and conquering Sidaris. This action not only delayed the Center Army's attack on Temeria, but also led to a civilian uprising because of the cruel methods used to find and kill rebels. Matters then grew worse when the Nilfgaard-loyal king of Verden was murdered by his son, who now led the uprising against the south alongside his allies from the island of Skellige. Taking advantage of the chaos, Sidaris attacked from the north, and so the Verden operation ended in complete failure. The defeat of Nilfgaard in the west created a new wave of energy in the north, leading to increased recruitment and cooperation as the Nordling states united, allying with the dwarves of Mahakam and the famous warriors of the Free Company. Financing part of the North's war effort was the King of Kovir, who struck up a friendship with Dijkstra of Redania and knew it was in the best interest of his people for Nilfgaard to lose. In order to get around his declared neutrality, he sent the money indirectly, using a wealthy Redanian ally as a proxy, an idea inspired by his wife, who was working under orders from the Lodge of Sorceresses. With renewed vigor, the North attacked and liberated Maribor and Mayenna, only for the Empire to strike back and once again lay siege to Mayenna. Fearing the loss of their momentum, the entirety of the North descended upon Temeria, hoping to secure Mayenna and continue pushing Nilfgaard south. Learning that King Foltest was leading a massive army, Field Marshal Cohorn rallied his men and cut off the Nordlings to engage in the critical Battle of Brenna. This decisive battle, involving roughly 90,000 soldiers, was partly orchestrated by the Lodge of Sorceresses, who wanted a definitive contest to decide the matter one way or another. Though the battle went back and forth, resulting in roughly 30,000 casualties, the North was ultimately victorious. With Nilfgaard in retreat, the Northmen continued to push the attack, taking Bruges, Verden, and Lower Sodden in the west, while in the east, Demavend of Edirn and Henselt of Kedwin led a joint attack to win the Second Battle of Aldersburg, while Queen Meve and her partisans pushed them from Lyria and Rivia, forcing Nilfgaard to abandon all their gains north of the Yaruga River. In 1268, the monarchs of the north and a representative of the empire negotiated the Peace of Sintra, drawing the borders at the Yaruga, with Sintra in the hands of a girl posing as Princess Cyrilla, who would act as a puppet for the emperor. Though some few knew this girl was a fake, they kept it quiet for the sake of peace. While most saw this war as a great victory for the Nordlings, business interests in the south did not agree, as northern infrastructure, factories, and agriculture were devastated, and with a peace agreement allowing trade with Nilfgaard, their corporations could flood the markets and achieve economic victory in the face of military defeat. Disappointed by their failure to conquer the north, Emperor Emir was nevertheless victorious in his primary mission of finding his daughter, Cyrilla, the child of the Elder Blood, at last reuniting with her at Stigga Castle in Ebbing. Unfortunately, Ciri's life after the coup on Thanedd was brutal, with even the brief moments of happiness she cherished ultimately destroyed and taken away. In her travels, Ciri was hunted, tortured, and learned to kill, both out of necessity and amusement. Yet she eventually learned to use her elder blood to transport between worlds, escaping her human pursuers. Unfortunately, humans were not the only ones chasing her, and she was eventually captured by the Wild Hunt, elves from the world of the NL, who wanted her to breed with their king and produce a child to fulfill Ithleen's prophecy and return to them control of the gateway between worlds. Living with them for a time, Ciri soon allied with the unicorn species, enemies of the elves who shared these lands, and they helped her escape to eventually reach her homeworld. Once returned, she went to confront Vilgefortz, hoping to end his hunt for her and rescue Yennefer, who had been taken prisoner at Stigga Castle. Delighted to see she walked right into his fortress, Vilgefortz captured Ciri with ease and prepared to impregnate her through artificial insemination in order to obtain her placental blood. With no intention of delivering her to the Emperor, his entire history and alliance with Nilfgaard was simply a ploy so he might have access to Ciri and use her in his sadistic experiments to steal her incredible powers for himself. But the happiness of Vilgefortz was short-lived, as Geralt of Rivia soon arrived, accompanied by a party of loyal friends who helped him clear the castle and rescue his family. After surviving a long and perilous journey, Geralt at last faced Vilgefortz again, and this time emerged victorious, slaying the powerful elf. Though all of the Witcher's companions lost their lives in the fighting at Stygia, they succeeded in helping rescue both Ciri and Yennefer, with Geralt fighting alongside his daughter to finish off the last of the guards as they escaped. But as they reached the entrance to the castle, the Emperor and a Nilfgaardian army arrived, taking Ciri into custody. Though both Yennefer and Geralt had to die because they knew far too much, Emir Var Emrys greatly respected the Witcher for all he'd accomplish and showed some mercy by allowing them to take a bath and spend some intimate time together before killing themselves. Ciri, meanwhile, would be taken south and given the life of a queen with all the money and power she could ever want. However, since almost no one knew Ciri was related to the Emperor, the plan was for father to marry daughter and produce a child of the Elder Blood who might one day rule the Empire and fulfill the prophecy to save the world. Believing the fate of everyone was depending on him, he finally had victory within reach, but as Emir looked upon his daughter and saw the pain in her eyes, he suddenly realized he was a monster and couldn't see it through. After everything the Emperor and continent went through so he might capture his daughter, in the end, he let her go so she could return to her real father. After reuniting with Geralt and Yennefer, the three spent some time together as a family before Ciri attended a meeting with the Lodge of Sorceresses, where she was forced to agree to an arranged marriage with the future king of Kovir. Yet when Ciri, Yennefer, and Triss Merigold went to meet Geralt in Rivia and explain the situation, they learned he was caught up in the middle of a pogrom in which non-humans were targeted and massacred. Finding Geralt severely wounded and about to die, Yennefer soon collapsed at his side after using up all her energy in futile attempts to heal him with magic. Determined to save them, Ciri broke her promise to the Lodge and used her magic to transport her mother and father to another world where they could be healed. Fearing she would attract the attention of the Wild Hunt, and unwilling to return to a life of forced marriage, Ciri then took off on her own to explore the multiverse, and so the last known carrier of the Elder Blood was lost to the world. Love The Witcher or any other series? Then why not check out Audible, where they have the largest collection of audiobooks available. Sign up now and get 1 free audiobook and 2 Audible originals, or else give the gift of membership to someone you know. If you prefer to read your stories, then click on the link to the Kindle Unlimited plan and get access to as many ebooks as you want. If you haven't already, be sure to check out the excellent Witcher audiobooks, narrated by Peter Kenny, including the main novels and short stories which accompany the series. A special thanks to all those who contribute to CivilizationEx, like Admiral Flint, Sir Rick Lone, Sir Bob of the Buoy, and Average Soul. If you'd like to help the channel, go to patreon.com/CivilizationEx, where you can sign up and gain early access to videos, vote on future content, and access the Patreon-only series, Heroes of Lore and Legend.